Spirit podcast. Join John and Sue Cook for a gentle conversational guide to your spiritual development. Together with their guests, John and Sue will share their experience and wisdom to bring you insight and empowerment on your spiritual journey. This is episode 7, Linking with Spirit.
So today we're going to talk about how we all link to spirit, and we all link in different ways.
When people come for reading, it's all about how I link. What I want to talk about in a way is when I link to spirit, what I tend to do, the process with myself, is that I'm aware of a male or female energy with the person, and sometimes there's both energies, because sometimes, very often, to be honest, very few readings I do with one spirit person. It can happen, but it's more rare than having multiple people. So there's men and women, or there could be a lot of women and one man, or on occasions all women or all men. When you come for a reading, the medium doesn't actually conjure up the spirit, because the spirit is with that person, because they're connected to them, so they're a loved one. And when a lot of people have mentioned the word attachment, the spirits that would be attached to you are the spirits that love you. So basically, people from your family or friends that you've had a big connection with on the life would have the connection in spirit, which a connection is an attachment, if you think about it. If somebody's attached to you, connected to you. So it's about somebody connecting to you.
But I think attachment has always been seen as a negative rather than a positive.
A lot of people tend to use it in that way, and they tend to talk about it that way. I don't buy into that personally, and my own spiritual, and it's all based on your own experiences, but with my own experiences, I don't buy into the negative spirit being attached to somebody, because at the end of the day, why would a spirit that didn't know you and didn't have anything to do with you find itself attaching itself to you or want to attach to you? Because I'm sure they've got better things to do than to follow a stranger around causing havoc, because it's as if they've got nothing to do in the world they're in. They're in another existence, another world that I believe is just as, it was possibly more exciting and more varied than this one. I don't know that bit, but there's a lot to do. There's a lot of things that they can occupy themselves with, and I don't believe that spending time with strangers who they're not going to interact with in a normal way is going to be of big interest to any spirit person.
Okay, well, before I really sort of got into this world, I did think that the medium magicked up the spirits.
No, the medium is the medium. It's the middle person. It's like, you're the in-between. So all what you do is talk to the spirits. But the only spirits you can talk to, if somebody's coming for a reading, you've got to talk to their spirits, not to your own. Because it's like my mum wouldn't particularly know much about, I don't know, Bert from up the road or Fiona from down the street. Yeah. It's a case that it's the people that, and also probably wouldn't be that interested to give messages about them. So it would be their mum, their grandmother, their granddad, their dad, their brother, their sister, whoever it is, or their best friend, somebody who's in spirit that actually has is invested in their well-being and in their life going forward.
So they come with the person, knowing that they are coming to you for a reading, and knowing that you will be able to pass on a message from them.
Yeah, more importantly, when they leave, they go with them as well. So I don't have an attachment either. I don't have somebody's granddad saying, well, I've worked with you to give somebody a reading, but now I'm going to stay with you because, I don't know, I like the way you've got your bathroom or something, and I want to spend some time in there. Okay. They follow the person, they go on with them. So that's a good thing. They're taken with them.
When you link, how do you link?
Well, with myself, because I've been doing it for so long, there's so many ways of doing it. With me, it just feels quite natural now. It didn't at first, even though I saw spirit, and you have to learn the best techniques for yourself. You have to learn how you want to work with spirit and how spirit want to work with you. But with me, I just are aware of male, female energies, and it's more a feeling than anything else. You can see spirit I used to do that, but I tend to just feel it now. It's a bit quicker. So just get the feeling of a male or a female, and then I start asking them questions as to their relationship with the person, a bit about them, so I can say something that makes sense, so that the person who's having the reading knows who it is that's linking with them. But there's lots of different techniques that you can use, and when you first start, you have to find the ones that work best for you.
Well, yeah, in my case, I sort of see a picture in my mind, a relative of mine. So if I've got somebody's granddad, I see my granddad or that kind of thing, and they show me a picture in my mind of somebody relevant. So that's my way of knowing if it's a man or a woman. But then when they come through, men and women very often come through with different energy. But sometimes if you've got a very masculine man who is in touch with his feelings, he can come through with a gentle energy, which at first is a bit confusing. So how do you sort that out then?
Well, with me now, they just let me know if they're male or female, and the personality then follows. So I already know I'm working with a man. Very often they've told me that they're a father link, or maybe on the dad's side or the mom's side of the woman. Obviously, if he's on the woman's side, it's more likely to be a granddad, because obviously you don't get a dad on your mom's side. But then if it is on the man's side, I will ask the question, is it dad or is it granddad? So we can kind of, or great-granddad, because very often great-granddads will come through because they can just be as important. And then from there, then we work on the personality. They give me their sort of energies, like you said, energies to the kind of person that they are, the kind of way they'd be. They give me examples in my mind of how they'd be in certain scenarios, which then gives you a good idea of their personality. And that's how it's working with me. But
do they show you more their personality or more a physical, how they look?
It depends. If the physicality is something important, as in they've only got one leg, or that they had some physical things that stood out, particularly, they may show me that, because it ties it to them very quickly. If it's just a case that the person knew the kind of person they are, the personality can be a big indication, because they've already told me it's the dad, and the person you're talking to, they know what their dad was like. So when you start talking about the personality, they know exactly that it is their dad, because what you're saying, you're explaining about the dad, and actually the person that's having the reading feels that person as well. And it's like they know that in the room with us, and that's the wonderful thing. But if you're just starting out, and when we're training and teaching people, we have to allow for the fact that there are so many ways of initially picking up, and it does change. When I first started, I used to see pictures on the floor in the carpet in front of whoever it is that that was sitting in circle. I was going to give a reading to, and I'd have to describe or figure out what the picture meant, and that would be the reading, without actually being aware of a male or female. That took a little bit longer before I started knowing the energies, who was who, because they teach you in stages, and you have to learn each bit, and each bit's important, because once you've learned something, you don't forget it, and it can be added into your, what we call our spiritual toolbox, which a lot of mediums will talk about, because we get all these different abilities, and this is why training's important.
So that you can understand that.
Yeah.
And just going on from what you were saying then, when you get a feeling of who they are they the same in spirit?
They always present in the same way as they were on the earth, simply because if they, when they was on the earth, were grumpy and they were a bit self-obsessed, shall I say, when they've entered the spirit world, they've looked at the life, they've thought, well, that perhaps wasn't the best way to be. So going forward, I've learnt a little bit about that. So going forward, I'm going to be less self-obsessed, and I'm not going to be quite as grumpy. If they came across not being grumpy, not being self-obsessed, the person wouldn't recognise them. So they have to bring the personality that they were on the earth, regardless of how they've evolved in spirit. Although we are always the same person, but of course we can change through life, and when we die, that's another form of life. So it's a continuation of life. So we're evolving all the while, but we're still the same person.
people don't really change. If you're funny and you're warm, that is how you're going to come through.
Well, you can try to continue to be funny. It depends how people
funny
take
you are.
people take Not everybody thinks I'm funny, but I keep trying to be. But the point is they have to recognise, and the person having the reading has to understand.
And what about if somebody has passed and they've been very poorly before they passed?
Well, I can talk about that because that's important. The way they passed is important. That's a good indicator, and it's a good way of tying down the person we're talking about. They often tell me of ways that they passed or some of the conditions they suffered with. But if you're asking me how they are now, they always say, which is logical when you think about it, because when you leave your body, you've left the body that was in pain, you've left the body that was suffering with the ailments. The spirit, the light being that you are, isn't connected to the nervous system, and so all that's left behind. So yes, once you enter the spirit world, I always say it cures everything, dying, because you do lose all the aches, pains, all the problems that you'd got. So anybody who worries about their loved one in spirit because they died in a very traumatic way or not pleasant way, which fortunately so many people do, they aren't suffering when they enter the spirit world. They are, that all the pain and suffering's taken from them.
And what about people worry that they weren't with a loved one at the end?
Well, it's always nice if you can be, but it's not about the person who's passing. It's more about yourself, about you feeling that you was there and you did what you could. But to be fair, there's very little you can do when somebody passes, and sometimes, and you'll hear the story, a lot of people will tell you that they're with the loved one for weeks knowing that they're passing, and the moment they turn their back and walk out the room to get a cup of coffee or whatever, the person passes in that moment when they're not with them. And the reason is they don't particularly need to be there, and sometimes they don't want you to be there, not because they don't want you to be there. They don't want you to have the trauma of seeing them pass. And so being with a loved one when they pass, that's not the important thing. The important thing, and what you have to think about, is the life you spent together and how important that is and how much love that you brought about between you. And that's what you should hang on to, and that's what you should treasure. And because your spirit, your loved one, as soon as they pass, they can be with you instantly. You don't have to be with them. They'll come and find you. So many people have said, well, I wasn't with them, but I did know they'd passed, had this feeling, or something happened, and I thought, oh, they've passed away. And that's because they've come to find you.
And what about the welcome from the spirit world? I mean, we know personally your dad went into hospital and then he had to go into a home, and the minute that he went into hospital, your late mum was with him.
Yeah.
As clear as anything.
Yeah.
And each time we visited him, he told us about how she'd been with him that day, where they went, what they did.
Yeah, when you pass, you're never actually alone, but not from the people on the earth. It's more from the people in spirit, as you say. And you are greeted and you are welcomed by the loved ones when they know it's your time and that you're not going to re-enter the body and that you're not going to have any more time on the earth in that physical body. They're there to help you across and to give you that comfort of knowing that you're not alone.
And we've talked to many nurses and people in care who have said that people know that they've got their loved ones with them before they pass.
Yeah, and it's happened a lot in readings. When I've been giving somebody a reading, they've mentioned the fact they've met loved ones and that that person on the earth knew they had because they've been talking about them prior to passing. And they've been able to confirm the fact that yes, that person was talking about that particular person before they passed, as if they wasn't talking to me anymore. They was in communication with somebody in spirit. And then when they've come through, they've confirmed that they actually were talking to that person, that they was with them, which I think's lovely, actually.
If somebody comes to see you and they want a particular person to come through, if they're desperate to connect to,
I always say to people, if somebody, not at the beginning, because I'd like to see if they come through anyway, because that's pretty good evidence anyway. But if there's somebody else I want to talk to, I always ask them, because I know that they brought them with them, and if they're in their mind, then they're going to be there. And there's a very good chance that if they ask for somebody, that I'm going to be able to pick them up, not because my ability, but the fact that that person's brought that person with them, they're talking about them, they're thinking about them, instantly they arrive and then they will start to connect. And that happens so often. And they say, you know what, I've had 3 or 4 people come through, but I love the person who's having the reading, and they love the fact they've had 3 or 4 people, but they actually wanted somebody else who was important to them. And as soon as they've asked for that somebody else, straight away I've had a feeling of whether it's a man or woman, and they start coming through and they start giving them evidence that they're there as well. And so I know that there's no reason why you can't actually ask for a person's spirit, because you're the one bringing them through, not the medium. The medium's the communicator.
And what about people who have said, oh, I've been told it's too soon, or I have to wait a certain amount of time after somebody has passed? Is there a time limit before spirit can come through?
Not from the spirit's point of view or the spirit's situation, it's more from our situation, because even though we've lost somebody to the spirit world and we want to communicate with them on some level, sometimes we're not actually ready to talk to them, not because we don't want to believe that they're actually in spirit. The grief and the trauma of losing them is still too raw that sometimes you just don't want to accept they've gone. And if you communicate with them from spirit, then even though you know they've died, it brings it home to you in a way that you might not be ready to accept at that moment. If you are open to that and you are ready to accept straight away that they're in spirit and I want to communicate, then you can do that on the same day. If you've got the mindset where you instantly expect them, you know that they're passing, and I think that's easier sometimes when you know somebody's been passing for some time and you've kind of got used to the idea that they are going to pass. But when it's sudden, and it can be very hard to come to terms with.
And I know it has happened on occasion where somebody's made an appointment to have a reading with you, and because you booked up months in advance, somebody can pass within that time.
And it has happened where somebody's made a booking and then before they've actually, by the time they've actually got to come for the reading, somebody's passed away, and that's the person they end up having the communication with. And when they made the booking, that person was on the earth, and in some cases there was no thought of that person passing at the time they made the booking, which is sad, but at the same time it's incredible if you actually take that onto another way of thinking and think that the spirit world knew they were going to be in spirit by the time they actually came for the reading. That's incredible.
That's the intelligence of spirit, isn't it?
Intelligence, and knowing that's happening. And it also can be a little bit comforting as well, because it's like as if that was kind of what was meant to happen. Because we've all got to enter the spirit world at some point, and so it's just amazing that I know these things.
What happens if you're with a client and you're giving them information and they're going, no, I can't take that?
Oh, that's brilliant. Because as soon as I say no, it gives you the permission to go deeper. And what I mean by that is, what I would do, if somebody says no, I wouldn't say that the information I've got's wrong. I'd say that my way of putting it across is wrong. So I'm actually not understanding correctly the information I'm being given. And when you think that sometimes you can be given pictures and feelings, you can often put them in the wrong order or the wrong place or get it mixed up slightly. That means you're being given permission by saying no then to ask the spirit person what they mean, and it means you get to be nosy. That's what I call it. And who doesn't want to be nosy? So to me, saying no is the first step in getting it right. And we say that to all our students. Don't worry if somebody says no. You've got to get things wrong to get it right. If you got things right all the while, it would be easy and maybe even boring after a bit. And so it's not a problem.
So it's asking more questions.
It's asking more questions of spirit, and it's giving you permission, because then, and you're going to learn, because then the next time it happens, you'll have more idea what it means, and you'll put it together a little bit quicker and a little bit more correct at first. But it's interesting, because when you start delving in, there's more information that you wouldn't have maybe touched on that comes up, And so they actually get a better reading sometimes. I'm not saying they should say no to get a better reading.
No.
Because if it is yes, then it enables you to flow.
To go to the flow.
Saying no is not a problem, because you can put it across slightly wrong, and it's nice to know how to put it together right, and the spirit world will always help you and show you.
What about if the emotions that are coming through from spirit are so strong? Can you get completely overtaken by those emotions? And how do you learn to keep them in check?
Yes, it's experience, because when you first start, and if you are an emotional person, and if you are, they're going to work with you that way, which I think is a wonderful thing, because it means that the person having the reading will feel the emotion through you, and it will show that you actually care about what's coming through, because they're affecting you in such a way that it makes the reading more powerful. But how do you control that? It is simply, first of all, it's experience, and first of all, we have to realise it's not your emotion. It's the emotion of the reading and the person coming through. And that takes a little while to understand, because at first you think, why am I feeling like this? And then the tears start to flow and you don't know why you're crying. But you're feeling the love from spirit. You're feeling the love for that person. You're feeling the genuine emotions that they've got for that person, and the emotions of the situation you're talking about. And it's about almost sort of letting that flow and moving yourself aside, moving your psychological mind a little bit aside, so that you can continue talking about it without it ending up destroying you as well. And you both end up, you and the sitter both end up crying in the end, not knowing why, or not being able to talk. So in order for you to continue to get the reading, you have to learn to be, I wouldn't say strong, just aware of what's happening, so that you can kind of say, well, okay, well, this isn't my emotions, this is to do with you, it's to do with the person coming through. It's my job now to convey the message as well as the emotions. I've done the emotions. I know the emotions aren't going to go away, but I'm going to start asking questions of the person in spirit. Okay, I know that it's an emotional thing. Let's start asking questions as to what the emotion's about, what they want to say, and kind of change the narrative a little bit, so you start putting it back onto a professional.
But that comes with experience.
Comes with experience, because then you're starting to say, okay, I've got the emotion now, it's important, I want to convey it, but now let's move on to what you actually want to say and the actual reading, and then you have to sort of move away from the emotion so that you can speak, basically, but you still want the sitter to know that you care and the person in spirit actually loves them and it matters to them as well, and that's where it becomes a powerful reading. So it's a wonderful thing, but it's the hardest way of working. But if you can, but when you get to actually master it, then it becomes brilliant. In as much as the sitter's going to get information and emotion and the feelings of the true feelings, the authenticity, the person from spirit, it makes it such a wonderful reading then.
And what about? I've heard people say, "Oh well, if you don't understand, I'll leave that with you."
A little bit of that kind of annoys me a little bit, because I think, well, you know, what you're going to do with that if you don't understand it? Will you understand it in a year's time if it's not explained to you? And you don't want to walk out, because they say take it with you is one of the things. And I always think, well, I've not necessarily come with a bag, so I can't let him take it with me. So what the reader should do, they shouldn't just instantly say that because they don't understand. The person having the reading doesn't understand. They should ask questions. They shouldn't just allow that, because it can often be that what they're being shown doesn't make any sense initially to the person. Say, for instance, they was being shown a ship, and they say, would you understand somebody who had a ship? Would you understand, I'm seeing a ship? Well, that person that's coming through never actually, as far as I know, had anything to do with ships. There wasn't a sail or anything. So I don't understand what you're saying about a ship, because they hadn't got a ship. Then you ask questions, and it could be that the ship is a memory link. It could be that it represents somewhere in the country or abroad where they saw ships, or where there are ships, in other words, by the sea. It could be something to do with the sea. It could even be an ornament or a ship that they used to have that was a model ship. It doesn't have to be a proper ship. And you have to delve into every aspect of that, and you have to ask what it is.
So everything is relevant.
Everything is relevant. It could even be the fact that it's time to ship out. in a situation, depends how the wording of what you're getting is. It can be a metaphor for something completely different. And so it's about asking the questions, and don't just sit on that and just don't let it go like that, because there is a reason that you see things. I've learnt over time and experience, spirit will never give you anything that A, you can't sort out, and B, hasn't got some meaning. And if you leave it with the person, what you're doing is missing out on some of the message that could end up being the most important trigger or the most important part of the message, and it's often ended up being that with myself. And again, it's experience, it's learning from experience, but if you don't know, you don't know, so it's about learning and asking.
How do you feel about readings in person or readings online?
Personally, I prefer to do readings in person, but you can do, and I have done, you can do readings online, and they're just as good as regards the information. Everything. I just personally enjoy having the energy of the person with me when I do it, but that's a personal thing. I mean, there's a lot of people who do lots of readings online because if you're, I suppose, a female medium, or not being sexist, a male medium who doesn't want people invading your household space, or you haven't got room at home, doing it online is perhaps the answer to that. And, and it is just as, can be just as good, to be fair.
The information is there,
yeah,
but the bubble that you bring through, and you can bring the energy of the person that you're talking to in spirit through, so that the sitter can feel it.
Yeah.
Does that translate?
That can still translate. It has done when I've done readings online, because I prefer to do it where you can see the person, they can see you, because you can create the bubble then. I've done phone readings where you don't actually see you reading, you're just talking to them on the phone. And even then you can create a bubble, because it's the spirit world that do that. But yeah, if anybody feels that they have got an ability to connect and they feel drawn to connecting, then I definitely think you should look into it, study it, join a circle or whatever it may be.
A workshop or a circle to train with other people.
Yeah.
Like-minded souls.
And
in a safe environment.
And when we train, we don't teach people to do things in a particular way. We teach them to do it their way, or we help them to do it their way, is a better way of saying it.
Because they're being guided by their spirit guides who know them better. We just help and encourage facilitating that space.
And that's what you should do, I believe. That's our beliefs, is allow people to become their own mediums. One way of doing it is to just, in your mind's eye, think, like I said, easy to man or lady that's with you. Other ways, I know people that actually look at a picture and wait for it to form. And there's lots of different ways of connecting to spirit to begin with. And you'll develop your own way after a while.
Like watching a photograph develop.
A lot of people. You did that for a while. You used to see like a film playing in your mind.
Yes, I did, yeah. When you learn a different way, you forget how much you have got back in that spiritual toolbox.
Yeah.
And you just instantly go, and mine is a lot more what spirit make me feel now, rather than seeing. Whereas when I started, it was a lot more visual.
And I think it is for a lot of people. You feel emotions, but it's a lot of visual at first, because you have to have something you can actually see. I mean, feelings are difficult, but you can actually feel a picture. You can actually feel it's strange, because you don't always see the picture, but you can feel it and you know what it is.
I think with feelings, you don't have to see a whole picture. I remember a little while ago in Circle, I was giving somebody a reading, and I just saw an arm on an old-fashioned armchair, and just from that, I was able to bring through the lady and the feeling. And it was the colour pink, and we've talked about colour, and it was all the feelings associated with that. She knew straight away who it was. So,
and if we was teaching you now, what would I ask?
What does that mean to you?
Because it is what it means to you. And just to clarify, what does pink mean to you?
Love.
And does it mean love to everybody?
No, it was the love that was coming through to the person that was giving the reading. And it was an old-fashioned armchair, and it was a very frail hand. and it was a grandmother. So they don't have to give you a lot for you to learn what it means, and it's how it makes you feel, and feeling for me is how I like to work.
And everybody likes to work differently because everybody's comfortable with different things.
And that's it, it's what you're comfortable with. Spirit eventually will give you what they know you're comfortable with and what works for you.
And what you've got experience in.
Exactly.
It's if you're not so good with feelings, then they might start giving you more pictures and more words.
And again, the best way to learn is to join a group, a workshop, a circle. Learning together is so much easier, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because you get everybody's help and support,
Yeah.
and there's
And
always
experience.
and there's always somebody there that can answer questions, which loads and loads of questions have come up, because that's how you learn.
Yeah. Thanks very much for listening. Thank you.
You've been listening to Exploring Spirit with John and Sue Cook. John and Sue are always happy to hear from old friends and new listeners alike. You can reach them via their website at johncookmedium.co.uk or on their Facebook page, John Cook Medium. We thank Vitaly Vakulenko for the rights to use his music via Pixabay.